right. All right, so the plan today is to finish up this thing that we've been working on, this REST API. I'm going to show you how you can test it, and then we're going to go on and we are going to do a fairly simplistic to-do app that will allow us to work with MongoDB and Mongoose. Okay. Now, yesterday, I had problems with this validate user. I fixed it, but before we do that, I want to go through the whole app.js file to make sure that you've got everything that's in there, because I did add this stuff just a second ago. All right. So the first thing that we do in there is we require Express and body parser. We basically instantiate Express. We set up our port designation, and then we set Mongoose equal to that configuration file where we added that information yesterday. Again, the stuff that's in blue in lines 7 and 8, that is basically bringing in the routes. I didn't have that in there before. I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't. So earlier rather, when I went to run it, it was telling me it couldn't find users and it couldn't find movies. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with that? Well, that's what was missing. All right. Then we set up JWT to require our JSON web token. The secret key thing is just basically something the system needs. We put a connection thing in there. All right. Then we came in and we used body parser and we used express.json. This was basically our very simplistic little home route that should have come up and said that. That's all we cared about right there. So it should have come up with some JSON with a key of movies DB API and a value of build REST API with Mongo, Express, and Node.js. Okay. All right. There's our app.use statement for, this is where it was blowing up before. It was blowing up on both these lines. So if you do not put in these two lines right here, your program will blow up when it gets to that other area. All right. So the app.use, users, and the app.use for movies. Now, where we had problems yesterday, and it wasn't you probably, but it was me, was right here. What were the problems? Well, I did not have a beginning thing there, so that was off, which is one of the reasons that I was getting errors. All right. And I don't know if there was anything else or not, but that was, that was a kind of a compounding error. So I'm going to leave this up there for just a second so that if you do want to copy that, you can. All right. Or take a quick look at it, you can. What we're going to do in about 2 or 3 minutes is we're going to attempt to go in and see if we can test this stuff using Postman. All right. Now, today I'm going to hand out, I called it MongoDB test number 1. I'm going to hand that out to you. I'll show you it in a little while, and I'm going to email it to you with the afternoon email that I send out every day. All right, it is worth 125 points. 25 of those points is basically keying in this code. I mentioned to you the other day, and I said, it is neither one of you gentlemen that's listening right now, but I have people who are falling further and further behind in this course. And if you are watching this on tape, you know who you are. You have to catch back up. All right. Believe it or not, I have cut down on the amount of homework that I was going to give you. All right. But I tried to go back and rewrite this test that I'm going to go over with you in just a little bit. All right. And we are going to go over it, and I'm going to make sure it's worded as such that, if you don't do something in there, you just literally lose all those points. So for instance, this test is worth, like I said, 125 points, and about 60 of them, something like that, are on this assignment right here. I think 25 is for keying in the code and basically having it run. All right. Then we're going to set up right now, we're in just a couple minutes, we're going to go in and we're going to attempt to add a user into Postman. And then we're going to attempt to authenticate that user in Postman. All right. And once you do those, what I'm going to ask is that you take not only run those, but you take screenshots showing me that they worked. And each one of those screenshots, I think at least, is worth 5 points. Then we're going to run through the 5 different CRUD operations, those being create, read one, read all, update, and delete. And again, I'm going to ask that when you run those, just as I mentioned, that you take screenshots of them every time, just so we're sure that everything is working. And that's going to be the majority, if not all of the points for that first part. Then after we get done with that today, we're going to go in and, like I said, we're going to build a fairly simplistic to-do app. All right. I'm going to give you all the code. And again, some of the points will be just for keying that code in, running it, and getting it to work. But what I have done on mine is my head.ejs file under partials, my navbar.ejs under partials, and my footer.ejs under partials. There's almost nothing in them. All right. And I'm going to ask that you try to do a couple of other things. We'll go over that in just a bit. Again, by the end of by the time you get this afternoon's email, which will be sometime, I don't know, if we're done today at 3, let's say, then by 3:30, it'll have the test in there. The test will not be due until the 30th. So you will have plenty of time to work on it. In addition, I was going to start tomorrow on Atlas, which is kind of a graphical way. It's the cloud-based version of using Mongo. What we've been using so far is we've been doing the equivalent of using XAMPP or XAMPP. And what I mean is we have just had our own local version of the Mongo server that we've been using. We're going to change. When you come in on Monday, we're going to set you up with an Atlas account, which is free. You don't have to give any credit card information or anything else. All right. And then we're going to go in. It's kind of intricate in what you have to do. It's not that it's hard. It really isn't. I've already set one up. In fact, I set one up a couple years ago, but I'm going to walk through the majority of the steps with you. When we get to a certain point, I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to do this because I've already got it done. Probably the crummiest thing, for lack of better words, is when we go to create this, we have to create what's called the cluster. And when you create the cluster, if you've got a slow internet connection, it might take up to 15 minutes to do. I mean, even when I did it at Rankin with a fairly quick internet connection, it took like 8 minutes. All right, just so you know that. All right, so that's everything that's in here. And then we got to here, and this is all stuff that you've had already. So there's nothing new in here. So if you have been putting down basically, in here, what I've been going over with you, you should be cool with everything. All right. So that was the 404, and then the generic error handler, and then listing for our port. All right. Now, if it's the end of the period today or whenever, and you're running this and you're like, mine won't work, I'm getting this goofy error, please try to share it with me. I may ask that you take your thing and save it out to GitHub. I don't know. Some of these files, they get big really fast. All right, so we'll see how it goes. All right, in fact, I'm looking here because I was just curious on my own. My project is, see, it's 19.5 meg. And the only reason I'm telling you that is that's not something that you're going to be able to email. Even if you zip it, it's going to go down at the most to maybe 15 meg. And I know Rankin at least only allows us to send things out to 5 meg. I don't know how it is for receiving. So if you're running through this after we get done and for some reason nothing works, all right, take a screenshot of your error, send it to me. I may be able to help debug it from right there. But if I cannot, then I'll probably ask that you go and you push this thing to your GitHub repo, and we'll take a look at it on there. All right. So with all that said, I think now that all my errors have been fixed. So when I do my view terminal and I go to run it, so come in here and do my npm run dev start. Here's kind of the check. Yeah, it says it's running. Now, again, if yours does not, then probably at least what it means is either you copied something in wrong or I told you something wrong. And of course, I never mean to do that, but it's possible I did. All right. So now with that up and running, I'm going to start up Postman. We're going to attempt to see if we can do some testing on this. All right. Okay. So I'm going to come into Postman. I was playing with this the other day. I had started working on a copy of it, and I started playing with the copy, and I got some stuff to work, and some stuff was a little hinky as far as the way that it either didn't work or it didn't work the way I wanted it to. So we'll see how it works right now. All right, so I'm in here, and the first thing that I want to do in here is I want to come in and I want to do a post request, because what we want to do is we want to add a new user into here. So it is a post. All right. And I'm going to come in. In fact, I'm going to start a brand new one here. It's a post. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, you can either say http://localhost or just localhost. Again, it doesn't matter. It'll be 3355. That's the port number I used. If you used a different one, you'll have to put that one in. /users/register. Now, we're not done. So please don't hit send right now. It isn't going to work. All right. First of all, I have to change this from a get to a post. All right. And then once we do this, okay, I want to go and click on body right here. All right. And I want to make sure I've chosen this URL encoded, but I'm still not done. So still don't run it because we didn't tell it what we wanted to post. All right. This requires 3 things to create an account. So I'm going to come in here and you've got, these are the keys. So the first key is name, the value. You might as well put in your name. I'll be real formal here and I'll put in Jeffrey P. Scott. All right. The second one is an email. Now I played with this before and I used my Rankin email, just so you know that. So it may already have that one in the system. I don't know, but I'm going to try it anyway. So I may get an error with this. So I am going to put in jpscott@rankin.edu. You, of course, would put in your own email. And then we need a password. And to keep it simple, I'm going to make my password. Now, of course, you wouldn't do something like this. All right. But what you're going to see in just a couple minutes after we put this in is that password is going to be hashed. All right. So we went in and under authorization, we chose body. And then we went in under the XWWW-form-encoded. All right. And we came in here and we put in this stuff, so to speak. Now, I don't think we have to choose raw and JSON. You're going to find out in just a minute if this doesn't work. But we have to put in a name. So again, these are our keys. So the keys are name, email, and password. The value for name is your name. The value for email is your email. The value for password is whatever you decide to put in there for it. Now, if this works, all right, then down here, if this works, then down here where I'm drawing bad circles, it should come back and it should give me the curly braces, and inside it should say status success, message user successfully added, and data null. So let's see if it works or not. All right, error, data and salt arguments required. Well, I know that we have a data argument in there. We've got a salt argument in there as well.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Mine, I'm having an error.
Okay.
And it is in my app.js.
Okay.
And it is the validate user. Where was an arrow function at? I put a function in front of validate user.
Okay, then let's go back and take a quick look.
Doesn't like that.
Okay. I've got the word function in front of mine, but don't have a, if you had the fat arrow, get rid of that.
Yeah, I took away the arrow. Oh, I think I may have found my problem. Let me try it real quick. No, it says malformed arrow function parameter list.
Okay. You do have it set up like this though. Function, validate user, etc.
Validate user. Yeah. Let me look through here real quick. Yeah, I have it set up. Just like that.
All right. That's you, Clayton, here, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay. John, did yours work?
No, I did not.
All right. Did you get the same error as Clayton, or did you get something else?
I'm getting something else. It's the basically saying that it can't find my config database.
Okay. Now,
and
on that, where are we here? Come on. You did make a config folder, correct?
Correct.
And is this, do you have this stuff in here in it?
Yeah.
All right, then the only thing I can think of is where are you getting that error?
I mean, it's in my terminal when I go to do an npm
Right,
run
but
dev chart.
usually in the terminal, when it gives you the error, it tells you what file it's finding it in.
I mean, it's finding it in my config folder. Like the folder and then database.js.
Okay, and you're sure everything looks the same way as it does right here, correct?
Yeah, it's identical.
Well, then what both of you are going to have to do is you're both going to have to send me copies of, I'd say the best thing to do again would be to post both of yours out to GitHub, and I will take a look at both of them. All right.
Okay.
And
yeah, I fixed the error that I was having, but now I got a new one, and it's a missing schema error. I solved it. I had another one where I misspelled a word in my movies.js, and I fixed that one, and I fixed the app.js one, but now I have a missing schema error.
All right. Well, and in as far as the schema, of course, that would be under your models. And I don't know, was it the movies or the users? I don't know.
Movie. It says
movie
schema has been registered for model movie. So
see, this is, like I said, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but this is, so if both of you would please, I'm just going to pivot right here. If both of you would please save your things and literally create a GitHub repo and throw it out there and make sure that it's either on your repo that I already have an invite to, or if you make a new one, send me an invite to it and I will take a look at it. All right.
Okay.
I mean, that's not a great answer, but that's the way we're going to have to handle it. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, let's just do a little pivot here. And what we'll do.
Mr. Scott, just real quick, can you scroll down to the very bottom for your module.exports? Okay, that's where I messed up at. I just have movie in there and not movie schema.
Okay. Yeah, this is, again, this is what's going to, your collection is going to be named, but it should be singular. It will be pluralized with a lowercase letter. And that is the name of the actual schema that you're using to create it.
Okay. No, I got you. That makes sense.
Okay. So like I said, then what we will do, just because, you know, I want us to do something and not waste a period here. And that is, we'll go in and we will actually just come in and start working on this to-do list. All right, so let me just change here with what I'm working on. Okay, and all right, we'll just do it like this. That's totally fine. All right, so I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to exit this. So I'm going to close this folder and we're going to start another project. Again, if you would both please get back to me later. And like I said, just after you've put that stuff out there, I'll be happy to take a look at it. For those of you who are watching this online, if the same thing happens to you, so if you put in all of that information and for whatever reason it's not working, then I'm going to ask that you put it in either a new GitHub repo or your existing GitHub repo. All right, take a screenshot of the error if you want to, but that's not even that necessary because I'll just run it right away and I'll see the error. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to create a brand new program, and I'll just do everything, or at least attempt to, inside of, so I'm going to create a new folder here that I'm just going to call to-do, T-O-D-O, one word right there. And I'm going to attempt to go and take that and put that into, or open that up inside of Visual Studio Code, and we're just going to start from right here. All right. Now, most of the stuff that we do at the beginning, all right, we just do it. You know, what can I tell you? All right. In other words, we start up virtually every project that we do. We start up in just about the same way. And I think you already know that. All right. So again, like I said, as we typically do here, let's just start by doing the stuff that we always do. All right. What do I mean? Well, let's come in here. We've got the to-do folder in here. Let's immediately come in and create an app.js file. Let's bring up a terminal. And in the terminal, let's do an npm init -y, which will give us our JSON file. Let's open up our JSON file. Change our test script as we always do. And because I always do it, you don't have to, but I'll change the author name also. So what we always do, I changed main to app.js to match this. I put in a start and a dev start. Okay, nothing new there, and added my name for the author. Okay, so far at least, not really much of anything new as far as what we typically do. All right. Now I'm looking in here because I had a bunch of notes and I can't find them right now, but that's okay. We'll just go on. All right. So as we come in here then, But maybe that'd be here. It's not there. Good deal. All right. So let's close package.json and let's come in and from our terminal, let's do our let's do our npm I minus D on nodemon. And let's do the only thing we'll need for this, for an npm I, we'll use, let's see, EJS and Express and Mongoose. I think that's all we're going to need. All right, so add those as well, please. All right, and again, let me clear this. You won't have to do this, of course, but I just like to do my package.json. There's my dependencies, there's my dev dependency. Okay, that's all good. So we're ready to go into app.js and actually start writing some code then. All right, but you know what, before we do, let's set this up again the way we typically set up a project. And what I mean is this. Let's go to the name of our project, the to-do, right here, and click on create folder, and let's make a public folder. We've done this many times before. And under public, we're going to create 3 additional folders, a CSS folder, an images folder, and finally a JS folder. Now, eventually, not today, not right now, but under CSS, I do want you to come in there and put in a new file that's called styles.css, and that's where you will put in your own CSS for this project. I have written this, I've gotten it to work, but I'm not going to lie to you, there's virtually no CSS in here at all. All right. Now, if you turn around and say, well, what about Bootstrap? Yeah, you can use all the Bootstrap you want. All right, totally fine. Okay, so we've got that. Then again, as we always do, let's add another folder here that we'll call views. And under views, we will add our other folder that's called partials. All right, and let's just build up our partials first. And I made these really, really, really simplistic. Okay, just so you know that. So in other words, I think if I go out there and do this, so if I go to partials, all right, if I go to my partials folder that's here, okay, it should be there, and I come in and I try to create a new file. All right, I want to make sure that this is set up the way that I think it's set up. So here's to do. Known modules public. Where the heck is my partials? That's all good. Huh.
Mr. Scott.
Yeah.
I think your views and partial folder was inside your CSS folder.
Okay, you're probably right then. All right, then let's get rid of that, or just move it to where it should be. All right, so you're right. There's CSS. So you know what? I'm going to just take this and I'm just going to delete it. Forget it. That's fine. So there's my style. So I'll come back up to here. Make my folder. Looks like it's still underneath there. So CSS, it looks like views is under there too. So I'm going to get rid of that. I know that like, for example, Mr. McLean, Mike, he comes and clicks down here. That's probably a better way to do it. Clicking down in there. And then do a new folder. And again, public. Oh, I have a public. Let's do views. There's views, and it's now not in public any longer. Okay. And in views, I'm going to put in my partials. All right. Again, double check and make sure it looks the way I think it should look now. There's public that's got CSS, that's got styles in it. There's images in JS, which are empty, and there's views, which has partials in it. Perfect. Okay. So inside of this partials, I want to go and create my partials. So the first one that we're going to make in here is head.ejs. All right. Now I think if I put in this, okay, and I hit tab, it is going to create that for me. That's an Emmet trick, and you should all know that already. There's nothing really new about that. All right. Now the only all I want to put in here is I'm just gonna, because this is going to be a pretty simple. I just put in here to-do list app. I changed the title, and then after the beginning of my body, I don't want that stuff. So in other words, this right here, this will be my head.ejs right there. The doc type, the HTML tag, the beginning and ending head tags, the meta tags, my title tag, and my beginning body tag. All right. Nothing new there, nothing we haven't looked at and you haven't done before. So I'm going to save that. All right. And I can close that. So I now have underneath my partials, I now have my head.ejs. Well, I want to come in here and I want to create another file. And that will be my, oops, try that again. New file, and it'll be foot.ejs. All right. And there's not, again, there's not going to really be very much in here either. All right. Just a couple lines. All right. So I've got my footer tag, class equal footer, MT auto, trying to center it basically. Padding on the y-axis, 3, and a BG light. That's enough. All right. And then inside of here, div class equal container. And one line. Span class equal text muted. And this you are going to change, but I have this place sticky footer content here. All right, and then your span. Now, where did I get this from? This whole thing in here, where did I get it from? I just want to show you, and then I'll come right back to it. And that is, if you go out and you literally Google Bootstrap sticky footer. Sticky footer template for Bootstrap. All right, sticky footer template for Bootstrap. But notice they're both under Get Bootstrap. There would Get Bootstrap 4, but I don't think it's really changed any here. So it says here, there's the sticky footer right there. So it's down at the very bottom. All right, it says there's a sticky footer with a fixed nav bar. If you need to, if you want to put that in, feel free to do that. How did I get this text I just showed you? I right mouse clicked and chose view page source and grabbed the stuff from the footer here. They also give you a link to the CSS they've used. I don't care how you do this. All right, but I'd like this to look at least semi-professional. All right, and what I mean is I'd like the footer and the nav bar would be nice too, to make them both sticky. All right, so as you go and add items to the to-do list, that neither one of those move. All right. All right, so that's this file save. And the only one that's left to do in here is our nav bar. And my nav bar is, again, unbelievably simplistic. All right. It's literally like 4 or 5 lines long. So I'm going to come back in here one more time under my partials with a new file. And this will be nav bar. .ejs. All right. And I'll even show you where I grabbed this from. Let me just do that first. So I went in here again. I went out to getbootstrap.com. You already know this. If I go out to docs and I go down to components, all right, I can look in here, someplace in here, may not be under components, but there is some footer stuff, there's some other stuff. But I just went under components and I found navbar. And I don't even need anything that's all that great. I didn't even need this. I went down to this next one. It just looks like this. And you can use this one. You can use the one up there. I don't really care, but I just, like I said, kept this simple. I didn't want it to be a link. I want it to be as a heading. So I literally just grabbed all of that code in there, all right, that code, and put it in here. So that's it. So now I have now shown you the partials, all right, the 3 partial files for the navbar, for the header, and for the footer. All right. So we've got all that stuff. Let me do a file save, save all here. And I should be able to close my navbar, my footer, my styles, and start writing now some stuff in the app.js or app.js file. All right. Now, some of the stuff that we put in here, you're not going to be able to run this right away. Just so you know, you're not going to be able to run this right away because we're going to go back and we're going to add some more stuff to it and some more files, etc. All right. Now, one thing that you should do, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting up a program where we want to be able to create a database. The database will be called to-do list. And then we want to be able to come in and create a collection in that database. And we want to be able to put documents inside of that collection. Why am I telling you all this? Because what we really should do in here also, so you should go out to your to-do folder or whatever you called it, open it up. You're going to need to do 2 git bash here's. With the first one, we're going to put in our mongod. All right. You've seen this one already. It's the one with all that stuff in it. And then just minimize that. And then open up another one in here and start up the Mongo shell. And the reason that I'm having you do all of this stuff, the reason I'm having you do it is because we want to see if we can programmatically go in, create the database, create the collection, create the documents. All right. Now, if I do a show DBs right now, because I was playing around with this before, I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. So I'm going to say you don't have these, but I'm going to use to do express, and then I'm going to say db dot drop database, and that one's gone. And I'm going to say use to do list, and again, a db dot drop database. You probably don't have either of those in there anyway, but now if I do my show DBs and I hit enter, I've got some of the stuff that we've been working on, including that Node REST API that we were just looking at. All right, but I don't have anything in here for to-dos. I know it says to-do list right here, but that the collection or the database rather no longer exists. Okay, so I'm going to come in and start writing up.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Just real quick, since my Mongo sh never really worked, wasn't it minus Nork at the end of it?
Well, that's a good question. Let's see if we can find that.
Okay.
Because I want you to put in the right commands. So what did you think was NORC?
Yeah.
All right.
Because I'm pretty positive that's what we need to use if it doesn't.
Yeah, it looks like it. Minus NOR, minus NORC. So yours is going to be Mongo SH space minus NORC, I think.
Okay, no, yeah, that's right.
Okay. And again, the reason I'm having you do this is I just want proof positive in here that the stuff you're doing is actually working. All right. So let me get back in here. All right. So we're in here, and so far we created our public folder. We created our views folder. All right. It has the partials inside of it with all this stuff, etc. All right. And yeah, we're going to come in and we're going to do our model in just a minute because the model is going to be very, very simplistic. All right. What I decided to do in here, not that, well, I guess you could say to test you, is sometimes when programmers create apps like this, sometimes they do it the way that we did our last one, which is the right way. And what I mean is they've got a controllers folder, they've got a views folder, and they've got a routes folder, just like we just did. Sometimes when the actual controller logic isn't that complex, they just put everything in the routes, which is not suggested, but you'll see it like that sometimes. Why am I telling you that? Because that's what we're going to do. Even though it's not the recommended way of doing it, we're going to create a routes folder in just a few minutes, and we're going to put a couple routes in there. All right. And then what I'm going to ask you to do on your own is to go in and create a controller folder, move your logic over to your controller folder, and revise your routes file, kind of in correlation to what we just did with the project that we're working on right now, not the to-do one, but the one previous to that. I want you to get experience going from one type of way of doing it to another type of way of doing it, for lack of better words. All right, and if that doesn't make sense, you'll see it in just a few minutes. All right, this is only about 20 lines long now. So let's get this done at least before our break. We want to add Express. We want to add Mongoose. We want to instantiate Express. And we'll set up our port. And again, I just used for this one 9988. You can use any one you want. All right, then we want to attempt to connect to MongoDB. So that's our mongoose.connect. Again, it's MongoDB ://localhost :27017, which is the default port for this, /to-do list. To-do list. All right. Then we want to add the necessary middleware. All right, so we've got our app.use, and it's express.url encoded. You know this one. Okay, so hopefully you've had a chance to put this stuff here in, or you're pretty much at least keeping up with me. I'm going to stop for about 2 minutes and just let you catch up. There's about 4 or 5 more lines we have to put in here, and then we'll be done with this one. That'll make it close to 1 o'clock, and maybe we'll even take a little early break today. All right. And again, there shouldn't be anything that's in there thus far that's surprising to you. I pulled this logic out. Last time we put it into that database.js file. All right. There's different ways of doing it. Just, you'll have to take my word for it that the projects that I'm planning on having us do, I'm planning on hopefully having us do 2 more and then do our main project. That's my hope. All right. And when I say 2 more, we're going to do a project next week where we're going to be using Atlas. All right. And I don't know if we can do Atlas in 1 week or not. I'm hoping that we can. Then the following week, so we're talking about the week of the 31st, Halloween Day, we're going to start on React. We'll do a couple simple React apps as a class. I'll give you a React assignment. But my hope is then by November 7th, this is my hope, like I said, we're going to start on a project, and what we're going to use is basically, since we have it in there, we're going to see if we can build an e-commerce website. And with that e-commerce website, I'm just going to use a movie store because we've been doing so much work with movies anyway. So if you decide, well, I don't want it to be a movie store, I want to sell whatever, all right, you'll be able to go in and change yours. In fact, I hope that you do. And I'm hoping that as we go through this, that each one of your projects looks a heck of a lot different from everybody else's. All right. So hopefully I gave you a chance to catch up. We will create our routes. Okay, there'll be 2 of them. And there's different ways you can write this. So notice I've got the require like this. You can do this in a lot of different ways. Now it's not finding it because we didn't make a routes folder yet. That's why I said, if I try to run this now, that the program's just going to blow up. All right. And then our old, as we always do, app.listen. Port. All right. There are ways that you can write shortcuts in here too. I think, John, you were the one I noticed that you did that. We only have 1 line in here. So technically, we don't even need the curly braces. We could just come in here and do this. Like that. And then remove this. And that will work. All right. So there's different, like I said, there's different ways that you can do it. Okay. I just used to writing the stuff that I write in the way that I write it. Again, I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm just telling you that I write things the way I write things. All right. Now, again, we're not going to run this yet. We're not going to run this yet because we don't have these routes created. All right. So hopefully you've had time. I'll leave that up there for a bit. And the next thing, excuse me, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create the routes for this. All right. After we create the routes, we'll go in and we'll make an index.ejs file, and we'll see if we can get this thing to work. All right. And then after that, after all of that, I will show you on screen what the assignment is going to be. We'll talk about that for a little bit, and I'm just going to let you leave that. All right. So hopefully you've got all this done. Okay. And what we want to do next then is we're going to want to put in 2 routes. All right. An index.ejs route and a a to-dos EJS route, okay? And we have time to do this a little bit. It's only 12:56, so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go down to here, down to the bottom. I'm going to create another folder here that I'm going to call routes. All right. So I now have a public folder, a routes folder, and a views folder. So on the MVC, all right, we don't have the M yet. We'll put that in after the break. We don't have the C. I'm going to let you do that yourselves, all right, by playing around with this routes file or this routes folder. And again, and we've got the views in there already. So under routes here, we're going to make two files. The first file is going to be index.js. So let's go and create that right now, and then we'll create the other one. All right. Remember, virtually anytime you create a route, the first thing you'll put in there is const router equal require express dot router. And again, that has to be a capital. Let me see if I can type like a human being here. Express dot router. All right, so that's first line. There's only 10 lines in here, so const to do, and this is going to be where we're going to go up to our model that we'll do after the break, equal require, and that'll be under models. The IntelliSense again does not find it because we haven't written it yet. All right, we're only going to have one route in here, so a router dot get, and this will be our home route. Now, it is possible, not probable, but it is possible that when we come in here, that this could take a while to load this. It's getting the information. It's going to be getting the information from a database. Now, if you just imagine that we kept creating to-dos and we didn't give ourselves any way to remove to-dos that once they were done, or we just never remove them. And let's just say we had thousands, hundreds of thousands or more. What I'm getting to is this can take time. So what we're going to do, and you haven't seen much of this so far, but we're going to put the word async right here, right before our request and response. All right. And all that is saying is, hey, it's possible this could take some time. All right. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to grab all of our to-dos. All right. So I'm going to make a constant here and I'll call it all to-dos. And normally I would set that equal to just this. I would go to do, oops, yeah, to do dot find, just like that. And I tell it to go out and find all of the to-dos. All right. But since I'm using async here and it might take a while, I put the word await right there. So it's const all to-dos equal await. All right. To-do dot find. All right. And don't worry, hopefully this error is going to go away in just a second. We'll find out. There's only 2 more lines to put in here. All right. I didn't have my curly in there. That's why it's giving me the error. So someday for you guys, we'll write a program and I won't make any errors, but that won't happen. Res.render. This will bring up our index.ejs page, and we have to pass into that all of our to-dos. Right, to-dos. All right. All right, that is actually correct. The only thing we have to do then is export this. So module.exports equal router. All right, let's take a minute to go over this, and then we're taking a break. All right, we're telling it that since this is inside of a route, that rather than doing app.get, app.post, etc., we're going to use router dot. All right, so we're telling it from Express to use the router method. That's the way that you are supposed to do it, especially when you break these things up like we've been starting to do. And you don't have to call it router, but it sure is a natural name to use. All right, so this basically is the way we're going to be able to refer to our model that we'll do after the break. All right, and we're just referring to it as to do. And hopefully this makes sense to you because that is a Mongo command right there. The name of the collection, which is to do dot find. We've done this kind of thing before. And we're telling it that we want it to hold it inside of a variable called all to-dos. Why? So we can pass that to our index.ejs page and ideally at least have all those things show on screen. All right. Now, hopefully I didn't go through that too fast, and hopefully it makes at least some sense to you. All right. But before, we're going to take a break right now. But all I want you to do before this, because the next one that we write, it's a little longer. It's about 25 or 30 lines. But let's come in and under our routes, let's add one more file. All right. And that file will be todo.js. And that's where the magic with our to-dos is going to happen. All right. So this is what we've done thus far. It's 103. Let's just come back, please, at 1:15. It'll give us a 12-minute break, and we'll pick it up from there. Thank you. All right, when we just before the break, we did our index.js, which you saw is very small. All right, I'm going to steal these 2 lines from here. And I'm going to go to my todo.js, and that's going to be the first 2 lines in here. In other words, we're going to set up the router, and we're going to set up this thing called to-dos. To-do, I should say. All right, and then we're going to set up our routes. Now we will have in here, we will have 2 routes. And it's, again, this is simple. We're going to have a post, and we're going to have a get. All right. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to set up the routes. So I'm going to say router, and underneath here, I'm going to say dot post, and here's where we're going to put all of our post stuff. All right. And what is this? It's going to be whenever we want to come in and add a to-do. All right. With our request and our response. All right. And I mean, what do we want to do in here? Okay. Well, typically we do something, and I wanted to show you something. Typically we'd start by doing something like this. Okay. So typically we'd say this. I'm going to change this in a minute. You'd say const to do equal request dot body dot to do, which is totally fine, totally legitimate to do something like that. Okay. But we can also write it like this, and I'm showing you this because this is known as object destructuring, and you will see that, all right, at least at times you will see stuff like this. Okay, so I'm going to say to do equals req.body. All right, now did that bias anything? There's only one field in there, so it didn't bias much of anything, but I'm just trying to show you some alternative ways of doing this. All right. So I'm going to make a const, and I'm going to call it new to do equals new to do. To do. All right. And in English, what we are trying to do there, what we are going to try to do is, in a couple minutes, we're going to build the index.ejs file that'll go into our views folder. All right. And it'll be an unbelievably simplistic interface. All right. It'll have the equivalent of like a text box on it and a button. And in that text box, we'll be able to go in and add more to-dos. And every time we go and we click, so we put something into that text box and we will click, basically just, hit enter or whatever, it's going to create a new to-do. And then we will want our list of to-dos to show underneath this mini little form that we'll have, okay? And each to-do that we put in there will have a delete button on it. And that's the one we're going to write in a minute. All right. Why? Because with that one, every single time that we click the delete button, we want that particular to-do to go away. So for the add, we're adding a document to our collection. And with the delete, we are removing a document from the collection. All right. So just put a comment here that says save the to-do. All right. And the new to-do. Okay. And you may or may not remember this, but we talked about this before. We're going to be using promises in here that have a dot then and a dot catch, etc. Why am I telling you this? Because I can come down here and I can now say dot save. All right, dot then. We can console.log and just say something like successfully added to do or new to do. Okay. Again, you could put anything in the world you wanted to put in there. It wouldn't really matter. Then we're just going to do a res.redirect right back to the home page, because what should happen here, is we go in, we put something into that text box. All right, we click the submit button and it should add the new to-do to our list of to-dos. But we want to do a res.redirect because we want it to show us again. We want it to show us our list, but now our updated list with our new to-do. All right. Now, we'll put a dot catch in there just in case for some reason something doesn't work. And what are we catching? Well, we're catching an error. All right. And again, we've talked about this kind of thing before. And we can come in here then and do this. And do a console.log of the error. That really and truly should never happen. All right. But to be safe, you always should put a dot catch in there. So this, what we're saying again, we basically come in, we will build the interface in just a couple minutes. It'll have, again, just a text box on it and a button. All right. We put something into the text box. We click the submit button. We're telling it to save. And then we're telling it to give a message to the console that says it was successfully saved. Then we're asking it to redirect, which in essence, what that's doing, it's as though you went in and you pressed your reload button, because it should have our to-do list items in it, including the one we just added. But if for some reason something goes awry and doesn't work, we're just going to log out the error. All right. All right. So that's the first one. Okay, that's our dot post right there. Okay. Well, we've got another one here, and that's a dot get. And that's going to be when we attempt to delete. So this is what's going to happen when we press that delete button. Each to-do will have its own delete on it. All right, but we have to make sure we know the ID. We don't want to delete everything. We only want to delete the one, all right, that we have chosen to delete. That up. And not a lot of code in here, 7 or 8 lines, something like that. Again, we'll use this object destructuring just so you can see its use. And I want to make, whoops, what the heck did that do? What that's doing. That is really weird. Let me get rid of all this. Wow, that was weird. Get const underscore ID. All right, I think the reason it's writing all this stuff is because we haven't written our regular route yet. So if you get all that stuff, just change it to this. That's what it should say. All right. So we've got that. And then we're saying to do dot delete one. And we want to make sure we're removing the one we want to remove, and that's underscore ID, which we just created up above. All right. But again, when we do this, it's going to be a promise. So we want to say dot then, very similar to what we just did. In fact, virtually identical to what we just did. All right. And we'll fix all this stuff in just a second. So we'll do a console.log, and it'll say, the other one said successfully added new to do. And this one will say successfully deleted existing to do. Right? And again, just like we did before, we'll do a res dot redirect back to the home page. All right. And then that's this. And then again, it can fail. So dot catch, just like we looked at before, ERR. And we will again, just like before, console.log any error that we get. All right. Don't think I'm missing anything here. Let's see. Finally, we'll have to module.exports equal our router. Okay. Now it looks like, let's see, constant, what is it red there? I don't know. I'm going to grab this from the top. So taking it from the top, const router equal require express dot router. Again, that's something you're going to be putting into any route that you create. This, the reason that it's a little funky right here is we haven't created that model. We're going to do that literally in about 2 minutes. All right. This says whenever we use to do, we want you to be basically going into the models and grabbing that particular schema that we're creating. All right. Then again, this is what's going to happen when we hit the submit button. So hit submit button, attempt to add new to do right there. All right. So we're telling it to grab everything that we just put into that form. Okay. And we're going to basically go in and call it new to do, and we're going to call this. This is basically going to do the equivalent of like a create for it. After we do that, we're going to attempt to save it. And if we can, we'll give a message to the console and we'll redirect to the home page with the new to do added. If we cannot, we'll give the error message. So that's for saving the to do right there. This one will be when we hit the delete button for the to do item. All right. And if that is the case, it has to know the ID of the one that we're working with. And we're going to attempt to go in there and delete it. If we can, we'll give a message and we'll redirect, which will redraw our screen. All right, without that to do in it. If we can't, there'll be some kind of an error that we're going to catch, and then we export it. All right. Looks like it's telling me here that I'm missing a curly brace. So let me look through here. Nothing missing there. One there. There, got it there. All right, if I'm missing something, I don't know where it is, but we'll find it. All right.
Mr. Scott?
Yeah.
I had a quick question. So, like, your .get, is that supposed to be inside the .post as well, or are you supposed to close the .post?
Question is the .get supposed to be inside of the .post? The answer is no. They're two different operations that we're doing.
Okay, that's what I figured, because that's how yours is written. And also, the router, are you supposed to have parentheses or brackets around it? Around everything?
Around this?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Because what we could have done is we could have taken and put on this router.post. I could have added the .post. I could have added all this right to the end of that. You understand what I'm saying? We could have done that and then done another one over here with a router.get. By putting the router up here, basically, we're just allowing you to do two different operations. All right.
Okay,
I don't
yeah,
know
that
if
makes
that.
sense.
Okay. All right. I'm looking through here to make sure I didn't miss anything. And if I have, I haven't seen it yet. So. Yeah, that one looks correct to me. Like I said, if there's something missing here, I don't know what it is, but hopefully we'll find it. So I'm going to do a file save, and then I'm going to come back up here, and we're going to create one more folder here underneath our to-dos. So I'm going to create a new folder here for our model. And our model is going to be literally about as simple as you could imagine. So I'm going to come in here and have a models folder. All right. And under our models folder, we're going to create a to-do.js where we're going to create our schema for this. It's literally less than 10 lines. All right, so in models, I'm going to come in and do a new file. We will call it, I think we call it to-dos, or I think just to-do.js. All right, and const mongoose equals require mongoose, and then we'll set up our schema. Which has in it a to-do and just two fields. It's of type string. And required is true. Again, we can put a message in there if we want, so if you leave it off, but that's all that's in there. All right, so we'll do our module.exports equals new mongoose.model to do and our to do schema. And that's it for the model. Again, it's about as simple as it can be. And you should be able to realize that this, because next we're going to go in and we're going to build the interface. That will be whatever we have entered in to that text box. That's what this is going to be. All right. So again, the next thing that we'll do is we'll create the index.js. The index.js, that file, index.js, is going to go into our views. That should make sense to everybody. So let me do a save here. Let me close because I got a lot of stuff open here. All right, I'm going to leave that open because it's showing me an error still, and I'm going to see if I can fix that. All right, and under views, but not under partials, but under views, I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a new file, and that'll be my index.js file. All right, and again, I purposely kept this very, very simplistic. All right. And the whole thing is, I don't know, 20 lines, maybe something like that. So let's start by, and you should now know what this stuff means. Let's do an include of what? Of partials / head. All right, so that's first thing. I don't know how that got there, but it did. I didn't put it there. So include partials / head. Why is it giving me errors? Good golly. I've got this working, so if I have to, I'll bring in that code. I don't want to do that. I figure if you're typing in it, I should type it in. Getting all sorts of errors that I've never seen before. Let me do this and see if this works. I'm going to go back to my working copy of this. I'm going to attempt to place it in here and see if it still gives me all these errors. Good gosh.
Mr. Scott?
Yeah.
It might be because you're in a JS file, not an EJS file.
That would sure help, wouldn't it? All right, thank you. Let's go back and rename this. Thank you very much. Index.ejs. Yeah, that helped a little, didn't it? Thank you. All right. So what do we have in here? And I'm gonna change some of this stuff because I didn't like the way that it came out, but you'll see it. So the first thing we did was we included our header. Then we put in our nav bar. Then there's an H1 in here. All right. Then everything's inside of a container. So this is going to be our form. So this is what is going to resonate when we go in and we put in something. All right, we put something in. We don't even need the flex. I'll let you guys worry about how this thing looks. All right. And we have the text box in here. The name is to do. The class is form control. Again, we can put in a placeholder, but you don't even really have to do that. Then we've got a submit button in here with a value of add to do. And I played around with the classes a little, with a little bit with the, just a little, with the way that we set up the button. I tried making it big. I tried making it small because you can say button small here, SM, button MED, I think it is, or MD like we've got, or button large. Medium is actually the default, so you don't even really need this. You can leave that off of there. It doesn't matter one way or the other. And I'm hoping that, you know, and I'm sure Mr. Gudmisted is probably much more meticulous than I am, but you understand that, you know, your commands in here, this is margin top, and that's margin on the x-axis. There's like an my, etc. That you've either used those before or you understand what they mean. All right, so this is the form that we're building right here. I wanted to make sure you could see it all, so I really laid it out like this. All right. Then in here, this is going to be the unordered list that we're going to work with. All right. And the magic is really happening right here. In fact, I'm not even going to do any of this. If you want to go and put in any kind of classes in here, etc., you can do that. I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. I'm just going to make it a simple li. And then we'll have an anchor tag in here. Don't think that worked real well, but it's fine. Okay, and that literally is everything. So taking it from the top, we added in our partial for our header. We added in the partial for our nav bar. We put an H1 in there. Then we created the form, and I'll leave that up there so you can put that in. After the form, we put in our unordered list. All right, and in our unordered list, we're basically, if you look on line 20, and I know you can see that on your screen, we're doing a for each loop where we're telling it to go through and grab the to-do out of every to-do that we have in there. Now remember, I've got in here to-dos.to-do. Why would I do that? Because if I put in just to-dos there, if I leave this off, it's going to give me the ID as well. I don't want this real long, hairy, winded thing on there for the ID, is what I'm telling you. All right. So hopefully you've had a chance to put this in, or at least most of it. All right, otherwise take a screenshot of it, and then this is the rest. Now, with all the luck I haven't been having today, what I'm going to just try to do, though, is I'm going to do a file, save, and it's still showing me an error in this file right here. And it's saying that I'm missing a curly brace. All right, so somewhere in here, I want to look through that one more time to see if I can find that curly brace. That's the might go right here. I don't know. Nope. It doesn't like that either. Well, what I'm going to do real quick, and I'll come back and put up any of this that you want to see, okay? But I want to show you the working copy. Okay, I played around with it, and for some reason on my working copy of this, you're going to see it. It's a little funny because it works, but there's some stuff at the beginning. It puts in 3 dots, and I'm not sure why. So let me just do this. npm run dev start. All right, it's running. It's on port 8899. All right, that's how it looks. Again, why I've got these 3 empty things in there now, I'm not sure, but I'm going to add a few items. So it's a to-do list, so buy groceries. All right, and well, that's supposed to be a button, but it's not. So let's see what else. Mow the lawn. And one more. Pick up kids. So I now have a to-do list with 3 items in it, and if I click, they're gone. that's all that this thing is supposed to be doing. All right. And you'll notice successfully added 3 to-dos, successfully removed 3 to-dos. Why am I even telling you that? I want to show you exactly why I'm telling you that. Because if I go back into here and I go into here and I do my show DBs, now you'll notice there is a to-do list. So I'm going to use to-do list and show collections. And there is a collection called to-dos. Now, if I do a db.find, a db.todos.find, it should be empty because I've removed all the to-dos I just put in there. So let's go back in here. And let's just add a couple more again. Buy groceries. Mow lawn. All right, now with that stuff in here, if I come back into here, you'll notice I may have to stop this and start it again. I don't know, we'll see. Okay, so let's come in here and let's show DBs. All right, use to-do list. All right, already on to-do list. Okay, show collection. All right, db.find.todos.find. And what is that? That's what we just added. Buy groceries and mow lawn. And you can see for each one of them, it added the ID. All right. Now, what is supposed to be happening also? Okay. So if I come back in here and I'll grab the mow lawn and I'll click delete. Now, if I come back in here again and I again say db dot to-dos dot find, you'll notice now there's only one because we removed mow the lawn. All right. So what I have to do right now, because I'm tired of leaving everything in the lurch like this, is I have to go through here and I have to basically compare what I did when this worked to the one that's giving me the error in the line right now. All right. And after we do that, then I'm going to give you your assignment. Now, my hope is that both of you have already either created a new GitHub repo or posted or copied your movie thing that we were just working on. You copied that out to a repo and you've got it out there. All right, because we're probably going to be done sometime around 2. Okay, and I want to look at that so I can hopefully figure out what the errors are on yours, send it back to you so you can start working on the assignment. So this is what you're going to get this afternoon from me. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to sit there and read to you. You can see that keying in what we've done is 25 points. Verifying that you can register and you can authenticate is 10 points. All right. What I will do is I will figure out ideally by tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a lab, but for the first 5 to 15 minutes, what I'm going to do is try to get mine working and have yours working so I can show you how to test these. Literally running these tests takes about a minute or so on each test. So if we've got a half dozen tests to run, we should be able to do it in 10 minutes. But on this, working with the one that we have been working on up until today when we had the problems, the MongoDB _REST API, keying in what we've done is 25 points. Verifying that you can create a new account and authenticate that account is 10 points. All right. And again, as it says, you will submit screenshots of both of these to prove that it worked. Doing the 5 different CRUD tests, the create, the read, or get all the read or get one, the update and the delete. To verify everything works and again do screenshots, that's 25 points. So collectively 25, 35, 60 points. All right. Then for the to-do app that we just finished right now, number 1 says key in the complete code as done in class. Well, you've been doing that. Now that code, I put an asterisk there because that code will change. I don't want you to use that piece of garbage head.ejs that I used and foot.ejs that I used and navbar.ejs that I use. I want yours to look like a nice looking site. So yeah, you'll key in the code, but you are going to modify it, and that's 10 points. I'd like you to add a home page to this, which is going to require some modification. What do I mean? You're going to have to go out to the routes, and instead of the route going, the slash route going to where it goes now, you'll make it a slash to-dos or a slash API slash to-dos or whatever. But I'd like you to have a home page that has some kind of a graphic on it. I didn't put that down, but I will. All right. And it basically just says to-do list or something along those lines. All right. Again, I want you to modify the site so it's got a decent looking nav bar. There won't be much to it because you're either on the home page or you're on the page where you can show your to-dos. All right. Next, the third bullet down. I mentioned this before. As of right now, all the logic is in the route files. I want you to change this. Use, as it says, the MongoDB REST API as a template, so you will add a controllers folder. You don't have to make an API folder like we did, where you had an API, then a models in there, and then a controllers in there. We just put all of our folders for this assignment right underneath our main folder. So we've got our models folder, our routes folder are all underneath our main folder or our root directory. And you can put a controllers folder under there as well. Then, as it says, you'll move the actual logic that we now have in routes.index.js. You'll put it into a controllers index.js, and you'll move the routes slash to-do.js stuff into a controllers to-dos.js stuff. That'll necessitate you, since you're moving the stuff out of the routes file, you'll have to update the routes file or files, and you'll have to update your app.js file as well. All right. So that's 10, 20, 45 points. Now, the next thing, this is the hardest part. And this is the only part of this I didn't do, but I will do it. As of right now, it's only possible for you to insert and delete to-dos. You cannot edit them. I want you to modify the program. So in other words, how could you do that? Well, one way you could do that would be, in addition to having a delete option, have a modify option. We've done similar things to this. We did similar things to this with the movie app. But as it says, to do this, this might take some Googling on your part. All right. I'd like you to add your own CSS and your own Bootstrap CSS to the site. I want it to become yours. As I've already shown you today, please make sure that you have MonGod and you have MongoSH both running while you test, so you can verify that everything is working as it's intended to be working. All right. As it says here, you'll have both tomorrow and Friday as lab days. And then on Monday, we'll begin going over MongoDB Atlas. If you want some more information on MongoDB Atlas, you can go to either one of these URLs. Notice they're either mongo.com Atlas or mongo.com docs Atlas. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to literally go through my working copy of this program, and I'm going to try to figure out that particular error that I'm getting at the end of that router where it's telling me that it's expecting a curly brace. I'm going to see if I can find out where that is. If I find it out, I'll let you know immediately. All right. Then after I do that, then what I will do is I will take a look at each one of of your projects and see if I can figure out what those errors are. I'm going to stay online here. All right. Again, I'll stop taping because it'd be kind of silly to keep doing this, but I will be online until 5 minutes to 4. So if you run into problems or questions and you need to email me or whatever, that's fine. Do either one of you have any questions before we call it a period now?
Yeah, if you don't mind, if I could see your views index
You sure
file
can.
again.
The to-dos index, the one right here?
No, the index .ejs. Yeah. And then if you could just scroll down to her a little bit. Perfect.
Hopefully this will take just a minute or two to get this part of it working. All right, to have this up and running. And I don't know, maybe you even consider what we're doing in here to be some busy work. It's not actually meant to be, but when we get into Atlas next week and you start using more of a GUI-ized interface, all right, then you're going to notice when we start to filter and we start to run commands, etc. You'd be, oh, like that's kind of like what we did in the Mongo shell. No, it's exactly what we did in the Mongo shell. All right. It's just that what you're going to have is you're going to have more of a GUI type of interface. Maybe I should have taken some time and had us go over Compass, because Compass is much more graphical than what we've been doing. All right. But I've talked to a couple people who do this for a living, and they tell me they use the command line for almost everything they do when if they're testing on their own machines. So that's why I did it this way. And that's the rest. So I'll leave that up there for a couple minutes. And unless either one of you has any questions, I will talk to you tomorrow. Any other questions? Clayton, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Oh, I turned my I put my Mongo API out on my GitHub.
Okay, thank you. John, I hope if you have not done that, you'll do it soon. All right, then with that, I will call it a period, okay? John, do you have everything you need from this file?
Yeah, I do. Thanks.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'll
right.
talk to you guys then probably tomorrow. There'll be an email where I'll explain everything. So talk to you then.